No.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the regular City Prescott Council meeting to order. It's Monday, March 27th at 6 o'clock. I'll do roll call. Tom?
Here.
John?
Here.
Dar?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
Maureen?
Here.
And Bailey is excused. Everybody stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. So at this time, next item on the agenda is public comments. City Council received public comments on any issue related to the agenda. Limited discussion by the council may take place.
Greetings.
Hi.
Lawrence M., resident of Locust Street, neighbor of Tom. When I was here last time, I said something without having all the facts in hand. And I have since learned that under Wisconsin state law, the list of registered voters, what we normally think of as the voter rolls, are frozen 90 days prior to any election. So regardless of how you book your voters as they come on in, nobody's getting bumped off the rolls at the last minute. And I regret the error.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Ruth Gredvig and my husband is Anders Gredvig. My husband is at home with our 2 small children and regrets not being able to be here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. We appreciate being included on tonight's agenda. You'll see us more at the bottom. I would like to first thank the Parks and Public Works Committee for their thoughtful discussion and recommendation of a 100% credit on our garbage can issue. We are also happy to see our recommendation of listing garbage can bin sizing on utility bills going forward. In August of 2018, my husband and I purchased our home at 1832 Canton Road, and shortly after moving in, we had called the City Hall to request a smaller garbage bin, going from what was there at the home, a 95-gallon bin, to a 35-gallon bin. At that time of exchanging garbage bins, we had not yet received a utility bill. We were brand new residents. Since then, every utility bill that we have received, we've paid. We've trusted that the city has been accurate and paid our utility bills as they've arrived. The price we paid for garbage in the city we lived to prior to Prescott was Cottage Grove, Minnesota, and garbage was far more expensive there. So we never really questioned the price of garbage in Prescott because we were thrilled to see a lower utility bill price. Again, because we had not yet received a utility bill up to this time, we had the opportunity to not notice any change in pricing on our utility bill. Since the first call in 2018 to the City Hall, we've had that same 35-gallon bin up until December of 2022 when we called the City Hall to request a 95-gallon bin. When speaking with Don Harris, we were all pretty confused. Our account and city records stated that we already had a 95-gallon bin. We immediately asked Don and the city if they would credit our utility account for this. Don informed us that she would investigate and get back to us. After about a month, a month went by and we had waited and called the city back and spoke again with Don, sent a few emails back and forth, and it was told that we had overpaid the city $303.53. City Administrator Matt Wolf had created a rule that the city would go 50-50 on the overcharge, only crediting our account $151.77. We have been asked to provide proof showing that there was a mistake done by the city in 2018, and the only proof that we have is that we followed the rules. We called the City Hall, requested a smaller can, received the smaller can, and paid our utility bills. We never would have known that we were being overcharged if it wasn't for Dawn's help and honesty. We really appreciate her. We don't appreciate, however, the blame being put on us by the city, and we are also shocked by the hostility and the poor attitude we've received from some city staff while trying to navigate this issue. We ask that for a moment you put yourself in our shoes and approach this from our perspective. How would you want the city to resolve the matter if it was you and your family? We are asking the City Council to please approve the committee recommendation to credit our account fully of $303.53, as this is the common sense and ethically right thing to do. The letter in your packet from Matt Wolf states that the city underwent a full audit in 2020 with no inconsistencies found. How is that even possible, we're wondering? If a proper audit was completed, this inconsistency would have been found. And in her letter to the council, Beth Lansing wrote that during the 2020 audit, the city took PIG, at the time, took their word to make sure that the city's billing system was correct for all residents. I wonder, and my husband wonders, why didn't the city do their own audit aside from just accepting what PIG provided? We do urge the city to perform a full and thorough audit again. How many residents in Prescott are either being overcharged or possibly undercharged? Is the city possibly losing money? We also urge every resident of Prescott to check their own utility bills. Beth also mentions in her letter that the city needs to hold the resident accountable and that the city will not be getting their portion back from GFL, formerly PIG. If the city does not have the funds to credit our account the full $303.53, the city needs to take that issue up separately with GFL. How is the oversight by the city our fault? If our request for a smaller bin was properly recorded in 2018 by the city employee responsible overseeing garbage bin requests, we would not be in this position today. The city needs to be held accountable for the employee who did not perform their job thoroughly in 2018. Each city is essentially a business. It is up to each business to ensure that their books are properly recorded and maintained. And I don't know of any other business that would fight an overcharge like this. Finally, if the council does not approve a 100% credit this evening, we will be contacting and filing a report and complaint with the Public Service Commission. Thank you again for your time this evening, and we do hope that a common sense and ethical decision is made.
So since this is on the agenda, I mean, we can discuss this now or we can do it later. It's up to you guys. What would you like to do?
Well, I think we can discuss it now.
Okay?
Personally, I was under the impression that the bin sizes were on the bills. It doesn't sound like that they were. And I think that's the piece, because we are a business, we are a business entity. Yes, we should be doing audits. I've worked here. I know how difficult it would be to audit between what PIG has in their system and what we have. That would be, I just don't know at this point if that's ever a plausible thing. Moving forward, we need to discuss it, for sure. And had your gallons been on your bill, I would have then stated we would look at half. But because it wasn't on the statement, how would they know what they have? That's my only, I mean, I have a hard time, somebody else can come in here and say the same thing, and now we're crediting back, you know, countless residents as well. But because it wasn't on the bill itself, it makes me, unfortunately, believe that we have to, you know, refund it.
I don't think we can do our own audits, that we have to have an outside agency do them, and we've always followed that. I believe that's right, Beth. We can't do our own audits.
Well, maybe audit, maybe is the wrong word for what we did do, but I know, I mean, because I was a part of it and helped Terry with PIG at the time, where we compared every house with what they had to, their truck driver was saying they were delivering with what we had. So how it got missed, I don't know, but I really feel like we did do our due diligence in
Absolutely.
working with PIG and trying to make sure that everything was fair for the residents.
What I'm saying is it's difficult when on the bill itself, we just see cans.
No, I see that point.
That's the only part that, when I just was like, well, how would you know? You know, if I got my bill in the mail and looked at my bill, how would I know if I had a 95 or a 35 as a new resident who requested a 35, was paying for a 95, but it doesn't indicate it on the bill?
You'd have
That's the
to,
only problem I have with it.
yeah, you would have to go online where they were posted.
I think there's so little difference between 50% and the full amount that we shouldn't argue about it.
Anyone else?
I have one concern. This isn't the first time I've heard from somebody that lives in this town about the lack of soft skills up at that window up there. And it sounds like Dawn really did her job, but somewhere else, those soft skills weren't utilized. And I'm really sorry to hear that.
I don't know, I've been on the other side of it at times, and it's difficult, especially if you're looking at, disappearing trash cans as well. We don't know what was there prior to you moving in there. I looked at your property, and there were 4 different homeowners, so I kind of questioned, okay, what bin size did they have prior to you being there? And again, for me, it goes back to not having it on them. And we've talked about upgrading some things on the utility bills, so there's more clarity with each item.
Well, here's the problem I have with it. There's no document whatsoever. So anybody could come up here and say, I've been paying over too much on my bill. I'm in charge for 95, but I only have a 35. Unless you go out to their house and physically look at their bin, or
And then there's still variables.
okay, hang on, I'm not done. Okay, so everybody that comes here and says that without any shred of documentation, are you gonna reimburse them for their bill? Because that's probably what's gonna happen now. Okay, we're opening up the door. Okay, I'm not saying that they're wrong, I'm not saying that we're wrong. However, if you made a change on your 401k, wouldn't you look at your paycheck to see if they made that change? I look at my paycheck every single time I get one to make sure they did it right, just to make sure. I don't take for granted that everybody's right all the time, and I don't really think the city is at fault. I'd be willing to go with the first quarter when the change was made. After that, they should have looked at their bill. And, if there was a piece of paper that said this is what we did, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
But when
However,
you
we
look at
don't
their
have
bill, It
that.
doesn't show what can size they have. That's the problem I'm having with it. It's,
Nobody's does.
I don't believe
Yours
that we're
does, mine
responsible
doesn't.
for it.
But I can't
I believe
see
it
that
should,
the city should have to pay for that because we give the money to PIG and to GFL. We don't keep it in a
Well,
coffer.
Yeah, and I'm not happy about it either, but what I'm saying
That's
is.
what I'm saying.
It's not.
That's where I'm
You're
at.
talking about a paper trail, but the paper trail starts with that utility bill. And it should have the can size that
It
I have
hasn't
a problem
for
with
ever.
that.
And we've never
Maybe
had
it
this
should.
problem before.
Correct, and this
Okay,
could be a
I'm
learning
just saying.
curve.
Well, I'll say a couple things. First, yes, it's GFL or PIG's responsibility to go change that can, which it sounds like they did. So they did their part of the process. It sounds like the city did not. The city's responsible for billing, they're not billed by GFL or PIG, the city's in charge
The
of the
city
billing.
collects their money. They're billed by PIG through the city.
Through the
Just
city,
like-
and
just like
the
we don't
process
pay
broke
your
down, it
State
sounds like.
tax either, we collect.
Sounds like the process, though, for getting the bill changed broke down at the city, not with, we know that they went and changed their bin. The pig went and gave them a different bin. And we have confirmation that that also happened in December 22, when they requested a larger bin, they went and changed it. So we do have confirmation of that. So there's not, you say there's no paper trail. We have confirmation that they went and changed their bin in December of 22. So there is some evidence and facts here that we can look at.
But I don't think the city's 100% at fault.
I don't either.
No, I agree
And I don't
with
think
that.
we
I don't
should
either.
reimburse the whole bill. I'd be that's up to you guys. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not trying to sway your idea. I'm just throwing out what's gonna happen, in the future. You could take a case by case or whatever, but, when we start paying people's bills for them.
If there's a flood of people that start coming in and say, I have a 35-gallon bin and I'm being charged for a 95-gallon bin, then there's a larger problem.
Yeah,
That,
I agree with
that
that.
would be a major problem, I think, that we would then
It
have
would be.
to take other steps. But right now, I don't see lots of people flooding in to say, you know, I have 35 gallon bin, I'm being charged for 95 gallon bin. So I think the ethical thing to do here is make the reimbursement, and I don't foresee this being a major issue moving forward. If it becomes that way, then we'll have to maybe do another full audit.
I do agree with Tom that I wish it hadn't gotten to the council, that this could have been resolved at the staff and the resident level instead of being, but I also know that we have to have a certain rule of thumb in which we treat people equitably, you know, through these processes of dispute. So I think it's unfortunate that this happened in this case, but I agree with John. I think it's highly unlikely that we're going to see a flood of people asking us to adjust their CAM rates that they've been paying. And if there is, then as John says, then there's a bigger problem, and we have to look at it as a bigger problem.
Okay, so we're still in public comment,
Okay,
so we'll have to bring the vote when it's on the agenda item.
okay.
Okay? Any other comment on that? Are there any other public comments? All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. City council meetings from March 13th, health and public safety from March 13th, police commission minutes March 15th, park and public work March 20th, resolution 1923 approving the purchase of a brush wolf 48 excavator rotary cutter extension.
I make a motion that we approve items 1 through 4 and reserve the resolution 1923 for some discussion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in, go ahead.
Did the police commission really have nothing to discuss at their meeting? They didn't report anything in their minutes.
It was an interview.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. So, all right, thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item on the agenda is reports of standing committees. Finance Committee, we have nothing. Planning Commission, next meeting is Monday, April 3rd at 6 o'clock.
Mayor, I think you pulled number 5 for further discussion.
For further discussion, yes.
Sorry.
Item number 5, resolution 1923. I
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
have a short discussion on that. When we did our budgeting, I saw the figure that was used for the boiler for Freedom Park, and I believe it was $65,000 was the suggested budget for that. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, that's pretty high for a boiler system for a building of that size. And so I was wondering what the actual bid came in, because as you mentioned in the purchase of this brush wolf, that the boiler for Freedom Park came in significantly less, so now there's money that is available for this purchase for Public Works. And I'm not disputing the need for the work, but I just wanted to find out what indeed was the cost of the boiler at Freedom Park, and that's it.
So the price of the boiler, one of the things when we were budgeting was what we were trying to do is, if you look back at our workshop when we discussed that, was that our expenditure restraint that we were allowed for this year, we had the opportunity to make sure that we covered our future debt service in terms of Locust and Elm. So one of the things we did was budget quite aggressively, or I guess high, in terms of the boiler. I don't have the cost, I guess, off the top of my head, what the boiler exactly costed. I would have to go back and look, and I could get that information out. I believe it was someplace in the $30,000 range. So that's where those savings come from in terms of our budgeting for capital expenses. So for when we look at the cutter here, which is $1,642 over what we had ideally hoped for when we were looking at the capital expenses, that was the thought process there.
All right, I understand that, and I'm not arguing against getting this, but the optics of estimating high is bad. And the reason I say that is, in my opinion, it has the appearances of building in slush funds. But that being said, that's all I wanted to know.
Well, the only thing I guess I would add to that is one of the things when we were looking at Locust and Elm Street, I think a couple council members have said when we were borrowing is, well, why don't we pay cash? What's the ability to pay cash for these things? Whenever we're looking at opportunities for savings and building cash, it does rely on us to have a capital fund that have funds in it. So that's something that we're always trying to make sure. In this particular instance, we're making sure that we have the funds available in future budgets to cover, so we don't have future increases to the levy. So we're trying to factor in all the different parts of the equation to make sure that we get exactly, the things the city needs. So that would be, I guess, the only thing I would add. I completely understand the idea of we don't just want to build up funds to build up slush funds, and ideally that's not what we're trying to do either when we're building our budget and bringing it to you and talking as a community, as a council.
Most of my concern is transparency. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay, so then we need a motion to approve Resolution 19-23.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? I'll call that the roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go to the standing committees. Planning Commission, next meeting Monday, April 3rd. Parks and Public Works. Next meeting is Monday, April 17th. Committee report. Since Bailey isn't here, John, do you think you can?
I can give a quick update.
All right, thank you.
We discussed the Highway 10, Highway 35 project update. The Wisconsin DOT came back and said that they could not narrow the roadway, which we had been looking at proposing. They cannot narrow it to less than 36 feet. So one thing that did come up in that discussion, though, is that the retaining wall between the Highway 35 and the railroad tracks, closer to downtown there, is in poor condition, and that hadn't been noted in any of our previous discussions.
Is that on the west side, John?
The
Okay.
river side of Highway 35 there. There's a pretty narrow space between the highway and the railroad tracks right there at that spot.
How long is that wall?
I haven't.
Long, I don't know exactly, but it's a pretty lengthy retaining wall through there, and it was noted by Mike and one of the community members that were here that it's in
Bad
pretty
condition.
poor condition. So I think Matt was going to bring that back to the DOT and talk about that.
Yeah, I've reached out to them. The gentleman from the DOT, which is Steve Bruce, is leading the project. He is out this week, or was out last week, so actually he should be coming back this week, so hopefully I'll hear something regarding that retaining wall and some of the other questions that the committee had in terms of the other side of the street as well.
Yeah, so the other thing we discussed was the potential, I guess, and I guess it's been discussed in the past, but the option to put the sidewalk or trail on the riverside of Highway 35 going up to Freedom Park there. I guess there's still some questions on whether that's going to be feasible or whether the DOT would agree to something like that. But there were some concerns brought up during the committee meeting about the trail or sidewalk running past those homes there on the east side of the street there, closer to downtown. So, other than that, we talked about right-of-way vacation for some of the alleyways in town, and the committee favored the approach where the city would take action as any issues in the alleyways occur instead of vacating them all. Is that more or less what we decided on that?
Just to be clear, the non-improved, we're not talking about like the ones that are actually have gravel and that people use and have access. There's a number of right-of-ways that were platted back, and they just never were improved, and there's still grass. And the issue that we have is sometimes, as a result, it requires our public works to go and have calls on them in terms of maintenance when it's really just the grass is budding up. So the idea is, well, what's the process? So we just discussed that process during the committee about it would take, and overall the committee agreed that if it ever became a large issue with one of these non-improved alleyways, we would look at it on a case-by-case basis, or if homeowners petition the city specifically.
So the other two items were talking about moving the dumpsters, the recycle county dumpsters over to the public works up on the upper terrace. And then we kind of a brainstorming session on phase 2 of the downtown riverfront project.
Okay, thank you. Next item is health and safety. Next meeting's to be determined, or Monday, May 8th.
We were gonna maybe try to do an April meeting, weren't we?
Yes, we were waiting to hear back from the
Cool,
Prescott
okay.
Days people still.
Okay. Personnel, next meeting, Wednesday, May 3rd. Still on schedule for that, Maureen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is communications, new business, public comments. The city will receive public comments on any issue not related to the agenda. Limited discussion by the city may take place. However, no action will be taken on any item. It includes written requests, documentation, possible action at a future consideration. All right, hearing none. Next item on the agenda is the Fire Chief, Prescott Fire Association. Confirmation of Chad Johnson as Fire Chief for the Prescott Area Fire Association. We need a vote on that then?
Yes, so recently the state of Wisconsin Department of Public Safety, I believe, I'm sorry, I apologize off the top, I can't remember specifically what department it was, but they audited us regarding our 2% dues that we received. So one of the things they brought up was that as a municipality, we are required to actually confirm and give an oath of office to our fire chief. So that is what is being brought before you tonight. There is language too that comes directly from the Fire Service Guidebook on page 11, exactly to why that is important for communities and municipalities to do that. So I'll turn it over. Chad has been with the Fire Association since 1993. He's with us here tonight as well. So I think the association felt he was very qualified, as did the volunteers that ended up putting his name forward for the chief position.
I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, then at this time, the administration of the oath of office by City Clerk Rochelle Temmers.
Probably a good thing. That is true. Please raise your right hand, okay? Repeat after me. I, Chad Johnson,
I, Chad Johnson,
have been appointed to the office of Fire Chief
have been appointed to the office of Fire Chief
and have performed the duties thereof since November 1, 2022.
and have performed the duties thereof since November 1, 2022.
consistent with this oath, and will do so from this day forward.
consistent with this oath, and will do so from this day forward.
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully
Discharge.
discharge the duties of this office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
There's a new chief in town.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to untable and consider approval of Resolution 18-23, approving the purchase of 1 server Badger book and 3 client Badger books at a cost of $8,540.95.
Motion to untable the resolution 1823.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to untable the resolution 18-23. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
I had something I wanted to say. I had,
Well, this isn't the approval, this is only so
This
we
is
can
just
discuss it.
untable it,
oh,
so that we can discuss it.
yes.
Do we need a second?
Yeah, no, we just need we have one, we just need all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so now we have the resolution before us I need a motion to approve Resolution 18-23, approving the purchase of 1 server Badger book and 3 client Badger books at a cost of $8,540.95.
I make a motion.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1823. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I had one thing I wanted to find out, and that is an extrapolation of the efficiencies that this is going to give us and what the payback in months, years, or decades it will be.
It's making fun of me because I stood up. So basically, I kind of just did a little write-up between what we have right now and what the Badger books, the benefits that it would do for us. So I know that you guys had discussions in the past about the Badger books, but just to reiterate that the Badger book is an electronic poll book used to check in our voters, issue our voter numbers, and register new voters at the polling place on Election Day. With the use of the Badger books and the actual voting process, nothing is changing. The voters still mark their paper ballots and cast their ballots in the tabulator. And the tabulator is not connected to the Badger books in any way, and the Badger books are not connected to the internet. So one of the biggest benefits of the Badger books for us is that we have faster processing with our absentees. Currently, when we have absentee voters coming in which the November of 2022 election, we had over 400 absentee ballots. That day, we had to service all of the people, the voters coming in and the absentee ballots, because we were not allowed to touch the absentee ballots until the day of election. So our poll workers are now checking people in and then in between taking the absentee ballots and issuing numbers, which are then being issued through the tabulator, 2 people at a time. So if we had the Badger books, all of the absentee ballots have a scanner on them. All we would have to do is scan them the day of election. If they're issued a number, they can be ran through the machine. So a huge time saver with the absentee ballots. We also can get quicker and more accurate voter check-ins and the registration and registrations, and improve like the flow at the polling place. Because right now we have each A through H and H through I, and everybody has their own table, where with the electronic poll books, anybody can go to any book because they're all set up that they can process anybody. They can tell us exactly what ward they're in, if it's a multi-ward election, that kind of thing. So I was playing games at the last election, well, the November election, switching which table had the H's because the line was 50 people long when the A's had nobody. So this would be a process to get people in and out a lot quicker. So basically, people come in, and if you have to register to vote, I give you the spiel, you gotta go back to that table back there, fill out the application, and then come back and see us, which then sometimes people sneak through that aren't registered, because they think they're registered, and then they have to get back out of line, do the process, get back in line. If they're not now, they can go up, register right as they're getting their number. And it can be as simple as if their driver's license is up to date, scanning their driver's license. So a huge time saver for them and for us. Plus with the absentee or the same day registration, the voters have to, sorry, I lost my train of thought, looking at my notes. The voters, afterwards, we have to enter all of that information into the system manually. And if you see people that write really fast, it's really sloppy. So the chances of us actually spelling the names correct, getting the birth dates correct, doing everything correct in the system, there's a lot of room for human error. Plus a lot of time. It can take up to the last election, it took over 3 days, full days of staff time to just get the same day registrations entered into the system. So this way, it's in, it's typed, it goes straight to the state. We don't have to do anything after we push the upload button once we put our drum drives together. So that's a huge benefit right there. And then also after the election closes, well, on election night, we have our poll books, which we're counting the numbers constantly throughout the day to make sure that we're on with our machines, making sure we know exactly which was the last voter, the last number, everything. The poll books take care of that for us now, or they would. And then the last big thing with it is right now we take our poll books, combine them into one, and within the weeks after the election have to go in and manually say, yes, this person's in our community, they voted. They voted. They didn't vote. They voted. They didn't vote. Ton of staff time. So I can tell you that it's probably 5 to 10 full days at a big election that staff is fully devoted, which if you did the math that way, it'd be about $264 a day of staff time. So times that by 10, you got the $2,000 right there for how much money it would cost or would save. So in big election years, it would be 1 year. We would get our money back. Plus, I think the processes of how it will work, and once people aren't afraid of electronics and technology, I think people will really see the benefits, and it'll be a much better voting experience for both us and the voters coming in. Plus, we can cut back on our election staff, because you only need one person to work each machine. You have 2 people that are initialing and handing out ballots. So if we have our 3 machines, we would have 5 election workers really is all we should need on a big election day. I would maybe want more, a little bit, like.
Food in.
Yeah, exactly. Good food.
Very good food.
But that's the pros and the cons, I guess. So, and I also feel like what we're planning on doing is using the ARPA funds, which are, in my eyes, are grant funds that are given to us anyway. It's the perfect opportunity to purchase them and not affect the taxpayers. So that's my spiel. Did I answer your questions?
Thank you very much.
I did ask 2 people that have been poll observers, and there was a workshop that they were invited to, and they did go to that workshop. It was like a whole day workshop on the new Badger Book system, and they loved it. And they thought that the process would be much smoother. And they both watch polls, or poll watchers in River Falls, which is a bigger community than we are. But and then I did my own research. I loved your memo. I thought that was an excellent memo. And I did watch the Wausau video as well, which I thought was well done and explained a lot of what my concerns were.
Yeah.
So I think this is, we should keep up with the electronic advances when they make sense and they are clear, like this one is,
Yeah.
about the advantages.
And I feel like we've waited and did our due diligence where they came out in 2018 and we've kind of been watching to make sure that they're what they are, what they say they are. And I was streaming through some different newspaper articles from different communities of and the benefits and the pros and how the community responded, and it's all been really positive. So I'm very hopeful I can do anything to make an election run smoother. I want that to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have any idea, are they able to tell you what upgrade fees or charges, or how long is, we buy these, how long before, I would think, every couple of years there's going to be an update that would come out. Do we have to pay for that, or do we get this for 5 years with all updates included, or any thoughts, or?
So I'm not 100% on that, but my assumption is that they're going to be just like our tabulator machines, where we get a new jump drive every election, which is reloaded into the machine. So I'm assuming that's how this is going to work as well. I don't foresee actually how the software is going to change significantly.
Okay.
Because it's all going to be if the state of Wisconsin changes how they have their registered voters in their system, and then it's going to automatically upload into ours with the software that they give us, is my assumption. I could find out more, though.
This may be or cart in front of the horse. Does this, because I saw the videos and watched those, and I think they are wonderful. And I'm not sure whether we would take the, what was it Wausau?
Yeah.
Whether we would take theirs, and she did a wonderful job,
Yeah.
and just borrow that and share it when the time comes with people. It would be something I would recommend if that was,
Yeah.
a proper way to do it, or how we would do that to the community when the time came, whether just putting it on the city site doesn't get people to go see it. Again, trying to figure out a way to get it out there, I think, because it does. I think it saves time. I think it does cut down on errors, like you said, which unfortunately, cause problems. Just something to think about.
Yep. Yeah, I think that having some sort of training would be good. I really hope that we start with one of our really small elections with them,
Sure.
too, which would then get people kind of more talking about it and educated on it. That would definitely be something to, I mean, if you think that people would show up, come on in.
I know. That's fine.
Are you talking about the residents knowing about this?
Yes, the residents. Yep.
Okay.
Once we have it and sharing it out there, because I think it's an asset. I think it's something, and when we do good things, trying to.
Well, we could put it on the website, and I know there's a lot of residents that do use our website.
Sure.
And I'm trying to update more information on elections, so they know where to vote, where to go online, where they need to vote, this, that, and the other thing. During the election, on the election day, or we can maybe do a laptop out in the rotunda out here
And run it.
and just
Yeah.
put it on a loop and let it run.
Good idea.
It's only a couple minute video,
Yeah,
so
it is, yeah.
for the time that it's gonna take them, the less time that it's gonna take them to get through the polls,
Right.
for them to watch a 2-minute video on how this process works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, I need roll call vote. Maureen?
Aye.
Pat?
All right.
Dart? Aye. John?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 20-23, resolution to obtain a cost share grant from the Department of Natural Resources. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor. So at the February 27th, 2023 meeting, council did approve agreement with Cedar Corporation to put forth a grant submission to the Knowles Nelson program through the Department of Natural Resources. As part of that application, the DNR does require that a resolution be passed by the approving body, in this case, the City Council, to obtain a cost share agreement. This resolution establishes basically that if we were to receive funds as part of this grant program, that it allows for First, the funds would be on a reimbursement basis, meaning we would have to spend them and then we get reimbursed. Additionally, it would have to have a signer for documents moving forward, which would set myself as that, or I guess the city administrator, whoever's serving in that capacity, to sign those documents. One thing to note that's not in the memo is that this in no way, shape, or form somehow approves any sort of funds or anything like that. If we do receive them, that would still have to come before council. Ultimately, what will happen is we'll submit the grant, and then the DNR will review all the grant applications and then make their decisions on which ones receive the funding. And then if we were one of those communities, we would bring that back to council for approval of that and the whole project as a whole, in terms of also would be looking at funding in that time too, in terms of on a reimbursement basis that we would need to do. So with that, I'll turn it over to council for comments and questions.
Look for a motion to approve resolution 2023.
Motion to approve resolution 20-23 to obtain a cost share grant from the Department of Natural Resources, the state of Wisconsin.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is ordinance -0322, amending 356-4 classes of licenses and 356-17 restrictions on temporary fermented malt beverage or wine licenses for the first reading. Dara, you want to take that?
No, because I don't recall even having a major discussion about this.
I don't think you were
I don't think I was. I don't recall this one.
Yeah.
So.
So, at the last Health and Safety Committee meeting, we had a discussion after our Prescott Days discussion was, there's been a couple occasions regarding temporary liquor license. So basically, temporary liquor license
now I know
are.
what you're talking about. Thank you. It's so different here than what we discussed. So the way the verbiage is. So yeah, thank you. Continue, Matt.
So temporary liquor license are basically regulated by the Wisconsin state statutes in terms of who can apply for them, or as I think it's put in, bona fide agencies such as nonprofits, community organizations such as that. So we had a discussion that there's been a couple occasions where council is supposed to approve them, and we've had organizations come in, after the fact, and their events are coming up, and we haven't had the time necessarily to get it approved properly, where they've come in, made the application, and then the event's coming up. So one of the things that we've seen other communities do is that it allows the police chief to review temporary liquor licenses, and if they approve of, after doing their due diligence in terms of the background checks and things like that, and I'll let Eric weigh in if he has other things that he wants to add, but essentially then, if they approve it, then it goes to the clerk to issue the temporary liquor licenses, so that it gives the opportunity for us to hand it in-house, just because a lot of these organizations are volunteer-based, so they don't necessarily have all the time to do all the paperwork. So we foresee that hopefully this isn't a regular issue, but it could become an issue, and it just gives the opportunity for staff to review them internally and then get them approved. So essentially that's before you tonight with this ordinance change in this first reading makes that change. So that I'll turn it over to council for comments and questions.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance -0-23, ordinance amending section 356-4, classes of licenses, and 356-17, restrictions on temporary fermented malt beverage or wine licenses.
So move.
Second?
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, this is those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, we're moving that, you want to move that to a second reading, or did you want to waive the second and third?
No, just the first reading.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the farmland lease agreement between the city of Prescott and Jeff Moles. Matt, you want to take that?
Yes, so last year we had this same agreement brought forth to council with a few minor changes. This is for the land of the business park that we purchased back in the summer of 2021, the 150 acres that was former Sears property for the expansion of the Prescott Business Park. In 2022, we approved this agreement. The only real change that's been made is that the increase of rent went up by 2%, so it went from $34,824 in 2022 to $35,521, and that's paid in 2 installments per the agreement. So with that, I'll turn it over to council for comments or questions.
Okay, I'll need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the $303.53 credit to 1832 Canton Road for garbage services.
I'll motion to approve the credit to 1832 Canton Road for garbage services.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, there's no closed session. Other business. Organizational meeting Tuesday, April 18th at 5:30.
So after our election, per our statutes and Wisconsin law, we have our organizational meeting, which will be the third Tuesday on April 18th, and we'll swear in either re-elected members or newly elected members, as well as go over setting up all the organizational items for the year. And the mayor will have his appointments to committees and other commissions.
So if anybody has objections to the committees that you're on, the positions that you're serving on, you can let me know, send me a text, give me a call, whatever, and we'll go from there. Next item is a proposed council workshop, Tuesday, April 11th at 5 o'clock.
So I wanted to bring this forth to council. One of the things we discussed a while back was paid downtown parking, so we've been able to get some more information, and we wanted to have a specific night so we don't run into council. Again, give us more time to talk about it. Additionally, we wanted to have a brief conversation too about some of the information we found out about the space needs study that we previously discussed at our last workshop, or 2 workshops ago, I can't remember exactly, but I was looking to see if council was available on Tuesday, April 11th at 5 p.m. to do that.
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay.
So,
All right.
So there's 2 different meetings, one on the 11th and the other's on the 18th, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So other business, I attended a presentation for Megan Langer. She won a governor's tourism award,
Yeah.
which is very cool.
Yeah.
And many people from the state attended. I got to meet some really good people and had some really good discussion. They're really excited about the city of Prescott. We're one of the 3 gateways to the Great River Road, us, La Crosse, Greater Sheen. And a couple of them actually stayed, and they walked our new sidewalk and our overlooks and everything. They had nothing but really good things to say about it. So
That's great.
it was really a good thing. And if you happen to run into Megan, give her a pat on the back.
Deserves it.
She's done a lot for the city as far as tourism goes. Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.